I'm Cynthia Marks, and I head up the Holistic Psychoanalysis Foundation established by my late, dear husband, Dr. Bernard Boyle. Welcome to And Now Love. Wow. So today we have Father Greg Boyle with us, the founder of Homeboy Industries. Thank you for being here. And you've done this 1,000,005 times, or maybe 250, I don't know, but it's enough. And you have to tell the same story over and over again. But just tell us quickly about the origins of this fabulous organization.
Okay, it's great to be with you, Cynthia. So Homeboy was born when I was pastor of the poorest parish in the city, Dolores Mission. In the middle of 2 public housing projects, we had 8 gangs at war with each other. Largest concentration of gang activity in the city was there. And so I started to bury kids as a priest. 1988, I've buried 263 since then. Not all from that parish, but I know a lot of gang members, so I get asked to do this. So we started a school, jobs program, and then we couldn't find enough felony-friendly employers, so we created things. And now we have 16 social enterprises, 10,000 people a year walk through our doors. We have 800 people who work there.
800 people work there.
Yeah.
And are most of those people previous gang associates?
Yeah, so 500 of those are our what we call trainees, and they're all gang members.
Uh-huh.
But 70% of our senior staff, the other 300 core and senior staff, have gone through the program.
Wow. And so 10,000 people a year, how do people get to your front door? Is it mandated by the courts? Are they self-motivated?
Yeah, we're starting to get a little bit of courts saying, instead of sentencing you, I'd like you to go to Homeboy.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really fully know how we feel about that, because we like the idea of we don't coax or coerce or recruit. You have to just, every 120,000 gang members in LA County, every single one knows where we are and what we do. So ready when you are. So walk through the door. So fortunately, it's not a lot of judges who are saying this, but mainly people freely walk through the door. They go through the process of drug test, orientation, interview, and then we bring them in for 18 months.
So that desire to come to Homeboys means that they are now going to have to face, let's say if they have addiction issues. Does that knock a lot of people out because that's just too big of a mountain to climb?
No, I don't think it knocks them out. If we're always drug testing, so if we go, whoa, meth, let's take a time out. We can send you to a place, we'll pay for it, we'll hold your spot. And sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say hell no. So then we'll come back when you're ready. We got you.
And of all these gang members or other individuals who are looking for this kind of help, or are not looking for this kind of help, what sort of percentage do you think you actually get to help move forward?
Yeah, it's a little bit like AA or 12-step or NA. People say, well, does it work? And they'll always say, of course, it works 100%. It works if you work it. So you're reliant on them. I can't want it more than that guy. So you're reliant on them to surrender to their own healing. So every single one who walks through the door comes barricaded behind a wall of shame and disgrace. And the only thing that can scale that wall is tenderness. And so they come and they experience a place where they feel safe, which is essential, a place where they feel seen, also essential, and then a place where they can feel cherished, which is kind of the secret sauce, where they feel like, oh wow, now I can move to the joy of cherishing myself and others. So if the traumatized are likely to cause trauma, then it has to be equally true, as your organization purports, and it's true, that a cherished person's going to be able to find their way. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the key.
So when you say cherished, is that equal to love?
Yeah, we say cherished only because sometimes love becomes their eyes glaze over. And so you use other ways. Cherished we'll say tenderness is the highest form of spiritual maturity, because then it's connective tissue. It's exquisitely mutual. It's really relational wholeness. It's individuals engaging in a kind of depth of care for each other that's extraordinary. Because sometimes, we say love and just a way of putting a contour on it so that people can feel, oh, okay, I get what that is.
Is that because the word love has been watered down too
Maybe.
much?
Do you think?
I kind of do.
Yeah. I mean, it's love never fails. Love is the answer. All these things are absolutely true, and we live by it. And then every once in a while, you can throw a little thing in like tender, or the only non-delusional response to everything is kindness. And you go, huh, okay, now I'm getting that. It's a way of ensuring that there is no daylight that separates us, that we're in each other's presence and we're able to inhabit our own dignity and nobility with each other. And also it gets at the service notion that kind of says service provider, service recipient. We don't want that either, because there's distance in that. So we want it to be that there is no daylight that separates us.
When you started this industry, Homeboy Industries, did you have that notion? There's no daylight between us. Did you know that going in?
No, I didn't know anything going in, probably. I mean, part of the thing is it's more of a movement, just as you are part of a movement. And you wouldn't want to be pigeonholed to even an institution or organization. You're trying to foster and nurture into being a movement where people go, yes, this is where I think we ought to go. In fact, I think we might be making progress if we embrace this, because people would kind of like things to move forward. And we're stuck in the mud sometimes because we put conditions on our love, and we put distance between us. And so at Homeboy, we embrace these principles that everybody's unshakably good, no exceptions, and we belong to each other, no exceptions. And it seems to be the only things that allows us to roll up our sleeves and say, oh, okay, well then nothing's holding me back. There aren't good people, bad people. They're just broken people, wounded people. Okay, roll up your sleeves and apply love as you have pronounced. And it's a thing that you go, oh yeah, okay. But here's the thing, maybe you agree, we've lost our confidence in love. And maybe that has to do, I was just thinking with the word adding contours to it, because we've lost confidence in it. I was on a podcast, I said, love never fails, and the guy scoffed, and he said, well, Father, I think our listeners are going to think that you're naive, I said, well, I don't know. A, I think we've lost confidence in love. And B, name a time when love actually didn't work, when it failed. And then you can talk about things and you go, well, no, we abandoned love at some point in that moment. But if we were steadfast and if we continued to love and embraced it fully, it's always worked, I think.
I think so too. And again, I think it is a matter of us getting down to the very kernel of our own selves and finding out that we, as you say, we're not either good or bad. We're just a kernel of love that needs to grow into
That's right.
a whole bowl of popcorn.
Yeah.
And I think that's a possibility for all of us, but it's a huge amount of work.
Yeah.
It's a huge
Well, part of it
effort.
has to do with the notion of goodness. And when a homie comes into our doors and says, I just want to be a better person, I go, well, stop. You couldn't be one bit better. Who you are is exactly right. It's only unshakable goodness. Now, let's try to get access to that goodness so you can live your true self in loving. How do you get there? Sometimes there are things that compromise your ability to access your goodness. Because once you know your goodness, then you know love is your home. And once you know that love is your home, you're never going to be homesick. It's kind of how you will live. And nothing can touch you. Not death, not rejection. Because, your engine is loving. It's not about, give me a return on this. No, it's just love.
Right.
It's just love. And that, finding the true self in loving, is kind of our goal at Homeboy. Healing will end in the graveyard for everybody. But we do 18 months because we think if you surrender to 18 months, a kind of a foundational surrendering to your own healing, knowing that healing will go on forever. But it's foundational. It's like, I'm feeling sturdy and resilient. And it's because I've been cherished here at this place. And now, boy, I find joy in being that for my kids and for the stranger and for the other people here. And now, now I can leave. It's hard because we're more home than home. It's hard for them to leave, and I appreciate that. But if they leave, other people are going to come in, you know. So,
but I would imagine that most of these people that leave continue to have some kind of connection.
Oh, totally. That's part of it. It's the relationship that heals. So, you want to maintain, people always are coming back.
And are they often coming back more in a helping mode than needing help?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe they are. A lot of them say, I just come back to get my fix, of people noticing them, knowing their name, hugging them on their day off. And so it's kind of a glorious thing.
You started out at Dolores Mission. And when you were assigned that post, did you know where you were going, what you were up against?
Not really. I spoke Spanish, and it was poor, and I had been in Bolivia, and I was supposed to go someplace else to a university. And I begged my boss, please send me to a place where I can speak Spanish, and they're poor. And he needed a pastor, and so it was fortuitous. And he didn't know what he was going to do, and he said, please, can you go to Boyle Heights? And I just fell in love, and I've been there for 40 years now. I only pastored for 6 years, but I go say Mass there. I did yesterday, But I'm in detention facilities as a priest. But because I know a lot of people and gang members in particular, every Saturday is baptisms or whatever it is, weddings.
Geez Louise, I don't know how you get it all done.
Yeah, barely.
So the idea of this kinship, this radical kinship, is just what we're describing. It's really seeing each other, knowing each other. We're all on the same plane. Are there moments where that doesn't go as it should, that have to be sorted out, that kinship is hard to come by? So, for example, you mentioned a moment ago that when someone comes in and said, I'm a bad person, I did these really bad things, and you're saying, no, you couldn't be any better than you are. It seems like that might be hard for a lot of people to accept.
Oh, yeah, I think it's hard for human beings to accept that. But you start to get to a place where you say, what does behavior have to do with goodness? It actually doesn't, So when somebody will start a fight, which we have on occasion, and the homies are great about this. They always say, find the thorn underneath. So they want to get beyond judgment. They want to move, lean in with curiosity. Wonder what this is about. Why did he fight that guy? It's not about conflict, because it's always about something else. And you go, oh, his mom has pancreatic cancer and she's got 6 months to live, and he's trying to figure that out. Yeah. Oh, we got it. But you can talk about that because they know that behavior is a language. And then we go, well, what language is that behavior speaking? But if we got derailed every time somebody shouted at somebody or swung at somebody,
you'd be nowhere.
Yeah, because we understand we're trauma informed, and so we're dealing with people who have been through horrific things. So how do we stand in awe at what they've had to carry rather than in judgment at how they carry it? And they're adept. In fact, they've taught me how to do this,
Those experiences that your homies have, the trauma that they've had to carry, when it comes forward, is so pointed. It's so clear that some of these big, scary things that these people had to deal with would affect them. It can't help but affect them, make them into something other than what they were meant to be.
Yeah.
And it's an issue that falls across all of us. in that we all carry something with us that helps mold us or take us away from what we were meant to be.
Yeah.
And the thorn underneath is the perfect way to put it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
What is that thing that is troubling Jimmy over there? Why is Jimmy acting this out this way? And why can't I look at myself and say, wow, why am I feeling so anxious about this thing? That's very mild-mannered in comparison to the people you help. But if we could all get to the thorns that each of us has within ourselves and each other, we can get to having some compassion and empathy for each other.
Yeah. And with our population, there are layers of trauma. So they can, the most immediate layer is, I've just spent 20 years in prison, somebody will say. And then the next layer is, what was it like when you were on the street and how being shot at and sleeping in an abandoned house? And there was another layer. And then the homie was telling me this the other day, and he said, and then there was my childhood trauma. My father, heroin addict, leaving me as a kid in this trap house and being sexually abused there as a 5-year-old. And so he told me all this, and he said, I've realized that my childhood trauma couldn't breathe because of the other layers of prison trauma, on the streets trauma, childhood trauma, which I thought was a very good image. My childhood trauma couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And so he finally got to it. And for the first time telling me, I've known him for many years, and hear him say it in front of a room full of strangers.
That's
This
a
was
big
recent.
deal.
And he said, yeah, and I realized I was sexually abused. My father would leave me there, being babysat by other heroin addicts, and this is what happened to me. But he realized that trauma couldn't breathe under the weight of the other layers. So he's excavating, he's getting there, and it's glorious to see, even for all the pain of it.
Yeah, but I would imagine too, or maybe it's part and parcel, that there is some amount of shame associated with that. Like, I caused this, that,
Yeah,
and that's a huge thing to
yeah,
undo. I caused this,
yeah. He's pretty advanced in his own journey because he's works with young folks in our organization, but he can also know how to help them and be present to them, and that allows him to reflect on his own experience and to be merciful with his 5-year-old self, that he perhaps had done exactly that, blamed himself.
Yeah. Well, again, that's a good lesson for all of us because we carry so much, keep it under our hats. We don't know if we speak it, we'll be considered wrong or bad or something to be ashamed of. So I appreciate that people are being so bold and strong and bringing some of these things forward. It only helps other people do the same, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So what about God in all this? Do your homies typically believe in a God the way you believe in a God?
Well, I mean, we have quite the continuum of faith adherents, I mean, we have atheists and we have Muslims and Buddhists and every variety of Christian. And so we don't really lead with that, because there's always that sense, like I remember in the Bush administration, the second Bush administration, where they had kind of a faith-based something or other department, and they came to visit Homeboy. And they asked me, what do you do here? And I spent 20 minutes telling them about tattoo removal and therapy and our businesses, and it's a culture where people feel seen and cherished. And I went on, legal services, whatever it was, curriculum things. So I took 20 minutes doing that, and then they kind of made a face. One guy said, yeah, but what about the spiritual part? So that always kind of pushes my button. So I said, oh, that's funny. I thought I just spent the last 20 minutes talking about the spiritual part, because I wanted to make the point that there is no kind of dichotomy that says, now we're going to talk about the spiritual part, because it's all restorative. It's all the kinship of God. It's all every single thing. So you preach the gospel always. Sometimes you use words, but it's rare that you use words. And the homies will say, usually before a fight, don't talk about it, be about it. That means don't argue with me. let's start fighting. That's kind of what that is. But it means really, on another level, don't talk about God, be about it. To live as though the truth were true and putting first things recognizably first, and taking seriously the things that, if you will, what Jesus took seriously about it, inclusion and nonviolence and unconditional loving kindness and compassionate acceptance. So, oh, okay, now I know what you're about. So you want to live from that place that is so clear and loud.
Well, as you were describing all of the things that you do at Homeboys, I was thinking to myself, I guess that is God.
Absolutely.
And it's a difficult thing to think. Somebody might say, do you believe in God? In a way, it reminds me a little bit of this conversation we were having about love. Is it a little watered down?
Yeah, it's kind of hackneyed almost, where we need new language, because I had somebody in my office say, he just had a baby. And he said, I'd like you to, I don't know, bless it, I guess, but not baptize it. And I thought, yeah, that's okay. Whatever you want to do, I don't care. But it's kind of, they don't co-sign on a lot of it. And that's fine too. And people come to it how they will and when they will. And what difference does it make? I mean, none of it's about admission into heaven.
Well, and Bernard, my husband, and I used to talk about the idea of God, the idea of love, of empathy, et cetera, et cetera. And I would say, I don't know. I don't know if I believe in God. And he would look at me almost like, who cares? It doesn't matter what you say out loud. And it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't. I believe that, and I'm a Jesuit priest, But I also think there's a notion of God, and if you're going to go down that route, the problem comes if your God is too puny, because then you don't have any choice except to be puny in the world. And so what you're trying to get at, if that's language that's meaningful, to say, yeah, I believe in the God of love. Mirabai Starr, who's a mystic and translates mystics, she says, once you know the God of love, you fire all the other gods. And that's a good, helpful thing, because that's what maturing in faith looks like. You go, yeah, I don't believe in that God. Well, what about the wrathful God? It's on page 49. I don't believe in it. How can you not believe in it? It's on page 49. I go, I don't know. Once you know the God of love, you don't believe in that God.
It's so confusing, though, because you hear still today so often, well, they're God-fearing people.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, fearing was supposed to mean in awe and, oh my gosh, you're great. It wasn't supposed to mean you're afraid of God. Mm-hmm. It just means you're in awe of God. But it's not very helpful language, because you hear God-fearing and it means I'm fearful.
Yeah, and I haven't read the Bible, but is there not a lot of discussion in the Bible about evil things and slaying this or I mean, how do we interpret that?
Yeah. Well, you use a mystical filter, I always say, where you kind of, and Jesus did that. He did a thing of the blind will see and the deaf will hear and the captives will be set free and the poor will have the good news preached to them. And then there's a kind of a last line from Isaiah that's about a wrathful God. And Jesus doesn't quote it. And you can presume that he didn't because he didn't believe it. Mm-hmm. I believe all this other stuff about freedom and liberty and blind people seeing and deaf people hearing and the poor having the good news proclaimed to them. I believe all that. I don't believe this last line. I presume that's why because it's in a set. And when you go, oh, what about this? He didn't include that when he quoted it. I love that, because then I go, yeah, he filtered as we would. I mean, so Jesus looks at a guy having seizures, and he and the crowd all think he's possessed by a demon. Well, no, he has epilepsy. But I don't expect Jesus to know from epilepsy. He just doesn't know about it. And nobody in their audience also knew it, Now here's a pill that'll control your seizures, But that's a good parallel for me, because sometimes people see demons And demonizing is the opposite of God, because that's exactly how God doesn't see. And we're at a time in our country where people hate each other because they hold different views or something. But again, the hate even is not the right language, because it's really about health. It's about, are we whole? Are we walking each other home to wellness?
And I've been thinking about that a lot since I read your most recent book. And even just in my day-to-day, walking around and seeing someone who I might have just immediately been frightened by, or immediately said to myself, well, they can't be a nice person. Look at that giant scowl on their face,
Yeah.
and look at their terrible gait, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
And I've just said, take that out of your head. Just look at that person differently and feel differently about them, or smile or say hi or how are you. And that just changes the whole scenario. It turns it upside down.
Something you talked about earlier about the stigmatizing,
Mm-hmm.
because that's intriguing to me, because I think like Vivek Murthy, was the Surgeon General, when he left office, he said, mental health is the defining health issue of our time.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with him.
Me too.
So if you look at Bondi Beach in Sydney, and you look at Brown University, and you look at the tragic murder of Rob and Michelle Reiner, and if you look at the National Guard's troops being shot, if you look at all of those, you say, well, what do they all have in common? Well, nobody healthy has ever done any of those things. That's not a stigma, because that's the problem when we have behavior and goodness somehow linked, and they aren't. There's a young woman who will get high on meth and not take her meds, and so she kicks in our front glass window, shatters it, and some of the homies will go, oh my God, I can't believe she did that. How disrespectful to you, and you've helped her so much. I go, you do know she's mentally ill, right? That's not a stigma. In my mind, that's not a stigma anymore. If I take a med for my blood pressure, and he needs to take something to lift his boat so he doesn't take water because of mental anguish. What's the difference between these two pills, really?
Right. Why should one be judged more than the other?
Exactly. That's because I once, there was the guy, remember the guy who shot from the Vegas hotel and killed all those people in the concert? And then I was invited to speak to psychiatrists at a hotel ballroom. And I was talking about that, about how the police closed the case. The man had been killed, but they said, we just couldn't find a motive. And I go, a motive? Well, imagine a motive for gunning down whatever it was. It was the highest, I think, mass killing.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine a motive. What, he lost his job? Are you serious? His wife left him?
Mm-hmm.
His wife left him for his best friend? You can't imagine a motive that would make any sense of killing all these people with. And then they were furious with me. And during the question and answer period, they went, oh my God, you're stigmatizing the mentally ill. And I go, am I? I don't think so. I think sensible adults in the room want to figure out, how do we address this so this doesn't happen? But if you just say, don't blame mentally ill people, I go, first of all, blame? What are you talking about, blame? I don't have any stigma on it. For me, it's not a moral judgment. It's a health assessment. And I think that advances the dialogue rather than, all our folks have real mental health and anguish issues. And we help them, and we say recovery is going to help. And you love people into knowing the truth of who they are. And yes, we have 3 psychiatrists who work at Homeboy. And so, so take a pill if it lifts your boat.
But how does someone do something like this man did in Las Vegas without being mentally ill? How? And
I don't get it.
And would someone somehow feel like the case was better closed if you were to say, oh yeah, he lost his job? Does that somehow make it better,
or they couldn't
right?
find a file somewhere in a psychiatrist's office that had this man's name on it. And you go, oh, does that mean he did not struggle with mental? Nobody healthy does this. Or even if you say ISIS motivated, you go, what's the difference between ISIS and saying, I was in love with Jodie Foster.
Mm-hmm.
You go, well, they're both indicators that this is about health. It's not a hate crime. It's about health. Nobody healthy is an anti-Semite. Nobody healthy is a racist or a misogynist or a homophobe. These are health assessments. They're perfectly fine to make. If you believe everybody's unshakably good and we belong to each other, then make health assessments. I'm concerned about you. I want the best. Then we become well-wishers, and we can start to address the things that lead to somebody shooting a bunch of people on a beach in Sydney, or all the horrible things that happen.
Yes, and look at our prison system.
Yeah. I was just the other day for a graduation at Twin Towers Jail, and they have a beautiful program. It's a step-down program, and it's dealing with the 5,000 mentally ill in our jails, making LA County Jail the largest mental institution in the world, on the planet, is our jail system.
And how can that be well run?
Yeah, but they're doing this thing that's really exciting. You should go and observe it.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's really magnificent. But it's they take healthy long-termer people who are fighting long cases, and they train them as mental health assistants. And they put them in a module with 30 really mentally ill people who are, in many cases, not even competent to stand trial. And they're there to protect the community and themselves. And these mental health assistants, are, okay, tonight is karaoke night, and they're getting all these people together. And, hey, did you brush your teeth today? And these are inmates, usually 2 per module, who are caring. And they even we call it incarceration. It was beautiful.
I love
it was so moving to watch, because I thought, well, that's what we want to be as society. You had to take them, and I don't, I have to stop the woman who's kicking in my front, for her own protection and everybody else's. But you don't need to punish her. When will we stop punishing wound and instead heal it?
Well, I'm quite surprised by what you're describing that's happening over there.
Oh, yeah.
Who came up with this?
An inmate, a guy who was on death row, came back to L.A. The L.A. Times did a whole feature on him. And he's fighting a case, and he's never going to leave prison. But he's in L.A. fighting a case. But he started this thing. What if we were to have peer, not guards, training guards to do this, but training inmates who are going to be here for a little while? I mean, it was extraordinary. I'd heard about it. I'd read about it. But to go to this graduation and to see, the inmates who are mentally challenged get up and say, I don't hear voices anymore. It's because these mental health assistants are getting them to take their meds, and they're in an environment where people know their name, and love becomes their modality. That's how they are present to each other.
What an amazing guy to have
a
started
model.
this.
Yeah.
Well, it's very similar to what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's
giving people a place to feel loved makes a world of difference.
You may need other things. You may need a med here, or you may need to make sure you don't get high, or here's a job to pay your bills. You need other things, but this is pretty foundational, I think.
So for someone like the woman who kicked in the storefront there, what happens to her? She's done something. She's obviously dealing with a mental health issue, and it doesn't mean that she's bad. She's just had this mental health issue that helped her get to this place where she created this havoc. She gets sent someplace where she can get some additional care?
Yeah, that's hard. Right now she's in jail, but this happened some years ago. So she's been in and out, and she'll come back to us. This is more home than home, and we hug her and we love her. But we also know that when she's starting, we think she's getting high again. I think she stopped taking her meds, because then it builds, and you go, and all of a sudden we're off to the races, and we can't have her in there because she's triggering people.
Mm-hmm.
But while she's doing the things that keep her healthy, she's come on in. But we hate to kind of put people on a no-fly list, but we do it.
And the no-fly list means that, unfortunately, they're out on their own?
Just for a period of time. We can't have you come in like a guy yesterday who's getting high. We sent him to rehab. He left. I said, we can't have you back here working it because you clearly have a meth addiction. And so yesterday they came to me and they mentioned his name and said he stole one, those scooters?
Yeah.
But it was a scooter that was owned by somebody there,
Oh.
who was actually just coming to get help. And he took off with the scooter. So then, we go, okay, he's going to be on a no-fly list for the moment, that we can't have him come in the building. They'll come outside. We're always going to help them. But we want them to know that, this is really unacceptable and you need help. This is just reminding us how much help you need.
That must be hard, though, to say, hey, buddy, no-fly list, and have them still know or trust that there's love.
Yeah, it's not as hard as it feels. I mean, it's not about tough love. It's about clear love. We're very clear with them. We know that this behavior has to do with the fact that he's refusing to go into recovery. We also know that he has kind of a complex dual diagnosis, if you will. We point him to the right direction, but we never say, you can't be anywhere near here, because they do come by. But we want to say that right now, because of you're not taking care of yourself, we can't have you go in there, because people are triggered so easily by your violence or your tone or your raising your voice, and then we'll give them a sandwich or something. But it's like, you call us, you let us know when you're ready to go to rehab.
Are there a fair amount of individuals who are in need of help that is beyond what Homeboys can give them?
That's a great question, because we talk all the time about beyond our scope. And occasionally there's somebody, but even the main thing with that, I think, is you don't want a critical mass of folks who are beyond our scope. You can have a couple. In the same way we have many, many wheelchair, brain injury guys who have a hard time walking or speaking. You have to have a balance, especially with the brain injury ones, because we are, the beneficiaries of them being there with us. And they are too, because they have a reason to get up in the morning and a place and we have them help in the kitchen or whatever. There's one guy in particular who you can't understand what he's saying, because he just incredible injuries to the brain. But he gets a paycheck, Well, he also has SSI, but he gets enough to be able to. But he has a place to go. But the beyond our scope is, it's good to have them there, because that helps. It trains people to say, yeah, he carries more than the rest of us, in terms of anguish and schizophrenia or personality disorder.
So how do you keep that balance?
Well, very carefully, because you don't want it to become, it's a little bit like gangs, you kind of go, we have too many guys from this gang right now. So we try to, if somebody comes in, and understandably they tell their friends go, ooh, we can't have 10 guys from this gang, because the guys from this gang are going to feel overwhelmed or intimidated or nervous about being there. So it's a way of balancing, and we do a lot of things. Send that person over to that business.
I see. So in
break
evening it out,
and
you don't just keep them on the outs. You help them find another method.
Exactly right, yeah.
You've been doing this for many, many years, and you've had a ton of success. Is there something that you wish you would have done differently, or some information that you wished you would have had earlier on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, tons of things. I mean, in the early days, mainly because those 8 gangs and its members, all the members lived in my parish, in the housing projects. It wasn't like there was a commuter thing like you have now. Somebody lives in Montebello and they come to Boyle Heights to kick it with their homies. We didn't have that. They were indigenous. They lived right there. And so then because I didn't know then that gang violence is about a lethal absence of hope. And it's not the Middle East or Northern Ireland. It's not sides. And what if we sat them down and they worked out their conflict? So there's violence in gang violence, but there's no conflict. It's not about anything. I learned that late. And then I learned bringing gangs together, let's work this out, supplies oxygen to gangs, and that's not a good thing. And we also learned, I learned that it serves the cohesion of the gang, and that's not a good thing.
So to sit down rival gang members and have them have a discussion, they are only going to end up, well, you did.
No, but it's like, what would they discuss? We would like to practice our religion freely. What? We would like our homeland back. There's nothing. They're all the same.
No
Gang
hope.
violence is about the fact that they can't imagine a future for themselves. So they shoot at mirror images of themselves. And then you kind of go, oh, wait a minute. What if we infused hope to kids for whom hope is foreign? Watch what happens to the violence once you do that. And you go, oh, the violence was about something else. That was my discovery. So I always say, I don't regret that I did that, and I'd never do it again. That's kind of how I live in that thing.
Yeah, I guess that's how we should look at all of our lessons.
Yeah, otherwise it's, yeah. And then, so that's why we say now we work with gang members and not gangs. Whereas in the city, they have a lot of programs where they do that kind of negotiating. And I think it's ill-conceived because I just think, oh no, it's not about that. It's not about conflict.
And in a way, you're keeping the gangs as gangs. They're not becoming just people. Not you. I mean, these other organizations where they're sort of trying to mediate.
That's right. Well, because I don't think they understand. They think it's about conflict. And that's very superficial. And you go, no, find the thorn underneath. What does this violence mean?
And then there's a commonality.
Yeah, and then you go, oh, well, let's try to address what I think what we try to address is, what if we healed people?
And you've got rival gang members perhaps working side by side.
Totally.
And then beginning to have conversations and finding common threads and not really then needing to hold ground.
And everybody has multiple enemies, but they become, there's a bond that's deeper and stronger than the bond that they have even with their families sometimes, but certainly with gangs, because community will trump gang. So once you have a palpable sense of a community of cherished belonging, you go, wow, this is great. And the guy making croissants right next to me, we used to shoot at each other. So that kind of thing, does that always happen where they're, always? There's no exception, because you can't demonize people and just put them in the vicinity. Because they used to say in the early days, okay, I'll work with him, but I'm not going to talk to him. And that bothered me.
Yeah.
In the beginning. But then now I don't care. Don't talk to him. Because I know that this will break down always. No exception.
Always. That's amazing.
Yeah. I can't think of a time where that didn't break itself down into real connection and relational wholeness between enemies.
I'm also impressed by this idea of community being stronger than the gang.
Yeah.
That's really something, because the immensity of the gang, in my, I think, stereotypical perception is huge. You're going to support that beyond anything, maybe mostly out of fear or this. Now, there's a weird idea of love, but that you think that's where you're getting your love. That you don't know what love feels like, but somebody says, I've got your back, and that feels like love.
That's right.
So to dismiss that and honor this community is really letting go of something that molded you.
Totally. That's exactly right on.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it is. But you kind of, you go slowly. We don't ask them to denounce anything.
Sure.
You're not indicting anything. You're inviting them to something. And so, here, try this on. And they really, even if they, and understanding that there's a continuum of where people are in their journey.
Always.
So our place is like an AA meeting. Who is there? Somebody who's 20 years sober, somebody who's 20 minutes sober. and somebody who's drunk, but he's there. That's who we are. So, we always talk about, I think he's got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Okay, let's kind of see where this goes.
Well, and that's where humanity is.
Yeah. We hope they'll have 2 feet out of gang life. But it's hard to let go because that's your whole identity. And, like even tattoo removal, we don't force that on anyone.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5.
There they are.
And a waiting list of 1,000 people still in the county of LA who want to get their tattoos off.
That's really
But we
something.
don't look at them and say, hey, you better get that off when you're ready.
Mm-hmm.
Or not. It's up to you.
And that tattoo service is not just open to people who are participants in Homeboy Industries.
No. And it's all free,
That's
I mean,
so awesome.
we've done kind of, where we say it should be gang related,
Mm-hmm.
Occasionally I'll get a gang member will come to me and say, I want to get this off. And it's, his ex-girlfriend, Lisa. So I'll walk him in and I'll say, hey, he belongs to the big bad Lisa gang. Can you remove this from his face? And they roll their eyes, It's like, oh, well, that matters to him. So go ahead and do it,
We spoke with Adonai, who is one of your homies, and he's still in your program. And he came to you, his face entirely tattooed, and he has been the beneficiary of your tattoo removal service. And he was talking about how we got there, how he never felt big and strong and scary, and he needed to. He was a gang member, and before he even got his tattoos, he said he used to practice looking in the mirror, trying to figure out how he could contort his face to look super frightening.
Yeah.
Because he was a mild-mannered looking guy. And then he
Yeah.
just kept adding to this. And one day his whole face was tattooed. And he had exercised so much and lifted so many weights. He was burly, and he just had become this scary looking guy. And it seemed that the whole process for him of removing these tattoos, which I imagine was quite an ordeal, was just cathartic and just finally letting him get back to showing who he really is. It was really lovely the way he expressed the importance of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's very painful, and it takes, you have to wait 6 weeks between treatments, so it takes forever. But there are tons of stories of people there, especially when somebody comes covered in tattoos. I go, well, look at that guy over there. We have glass everywhere. You can look into somebody else's office. He was covered, and now try to find a tattoo on his face. Took him forever, and it's painful. More painful than getting a tattoo. So there's that.
So do more people than not just pass on the tattoo removal
Well,
thing?
I don't know more people than not. I mean, again, we're never waiting for somebody. We have a waiting list, and especially those who are trainees. If somebody doesn't come to an appointment, we don't want to lose an appointment, so they'll go to the trainees. You want a treatment today? Yeah. So they go in, and
there's always someone.
There's always someone, yeah. Because we have, like 45 volunteer doctors, one paid physician assistant, but all these others who give of their time.
That's awesome. So you mentioned, we were discussing the idea of, say, calling the gang your family, and that's where you think you're getting love. And then because you're perceiving that you're getting love, you're giving back that same kind of love, which isn't really love, but that's what you know. And then you come to someplace like your community where there is kindness and compassion and tenderness. And that all seems like it feels good. It does feel good, but yet it's new. And how do you trust that? How do you not give up what you've known for many, many years, even though you feel it's not really right, or it doesn't suit you, or you're not, it's what you know. If you give that away, if you say, I'm investing in this, even slowly, let's say, what takes the place of that I knew?
Yeah, well, you hope that community of kinship will take that place, And so it's hard because they do have a lot of invested in it, but it's the difference between conditional love and unconditional love. You go, once you see what that is, a love that's kind of a no matter whatness. you go, oh, wow, that's really more compelling than this. This is a one false move kind of love
Yes.
that you can be banned in a heartbeat. You can be out, even have your life in danger. Well, these were the guys who had your back before. Now they want to kill you. That actually happens.
Very conditional.
Yeah, very super conditional. But unconditional, you go, wow, now I see the difference. No matter what, this place is like a big old net, and it won't let me hit the ground.
Do you think there's much for unconditional love in our world?
What do you mean much? Like that it exists? Not really, but the point of this podcast and Homeboy is to put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
Then you kind of say, try this on for size, and we're proposing a movement. We're proposing and then you want to be the front porch of the house everybody wants to live in.
Mm-hmm.
You
Which
go,
you
okay,
are.
I like that. I bet we could do that. And then it's component parts. You can kind of, we do what we do, but we also announce a message, And what if we embraced, unconditional love and kindness? What if we saw as God sees? What if we had a different lens, or wiped the lens, as the Buddhists say? What if we saw this differently? What if we named things differently? Instead of hate crime, I bet we could say, well, this is about health, not hate. Oh, okay. Well, let's not demonize them. Let's
What
reach
can we
out
do
to them.
about that?
Yeah, what can we do? How can we help you become whole? Ram Dass always talk about we're all just walking each other home. And I would add to that, we're walking each other home to something: health, wholeness, wellness, relational wholeness. That's where we all want to go.
It's a shared path.
Yeah, and none of us are well until all of us are well. So, okay, I'll wait for you. And then you'll wait for me when that time comes. And then all of a sudden we're just on a path.
Well, I think that these are desperate times at the moment, and I love that we have these platforms where we can talk about this. And what we're doing, we hope, is planting a little seed, one individual at a time, and helping us recognize that we do all share a path. And this magnification that I see in the people that you support, because the trauma is so big and the life stories are so huge, I think helps some of us who have trauma, have our own issues, and they're super big to us, as they should be. We each deal with what we deal with. But I mean, the strength that some of your homies have is huge and so impressive, and I'm in awe. I think that can compel a lot of us to meet some of our own challenges that frighten us. I mean, I know for me, I saw this glimmer of love, of what I thought really I could truly be. But I remember saying, kind of afraid to go there, because I've been living my life like this all along. It's been okay. I don't know if I really know who I am, but I know what I have. If I give that up, what goes there? And it is just as you say. I ultimately jumped off the cliff and gave that up, and all that went in there was love, kindness, tenderness, me receiving, me giving, and being able to walk a path that is kinship. That was rather selfish of me to say all that, but
no, gosh, no, it was good. Only connect. We all want everybody just to connect, especially now at a time when isolation is so dominant, and especially for young people, exacerbated by COVID and social media and all these things that but what will make those divisions tremble is compelling, not case for community, but a compelling community where people look at that and say, oh, I want to be a part of that. And the more we can create places, vicinities where people can be with each other and share their lives with each other, the better off we are.
And that Homeboy Industries is really known to millions of people, and other organizations have spawned similar kinds of programs. It's still surprising to me that so many people don't know of Homeboy Industries, and then also don't know about other organizations. It's kind of an underbelly or an undercurrent. These things that are operating that are helping individuals who can't help themselves. And I just want all of that to bubble up.
Yeah.
And I hope that what we do here helps that happen.
Yeah, I think in LA people know Homeboy, you know, because we've been around for 37 years. And the first 10 years were marked by great hostility, death threats, bomb threats, hate mail, not from gang members, but from people who demonize gang members. Why are you helping them?
They deserve to be punished.
Yeah, and you're part of the problem, not part of the solution. Well, then our bakery burned down in October of 99. So we were 10 years in to this. And then people realize, oh, wait a minute, this is really kind of smart on crime. We thought it was soft, but it's smart.
And what was that shift about?
Well, it was a shift where people, if they thought the choice was tough or soft, they're not going to choose soft. But if they think the choice is tough or smart, everybody's going to choose smart. So they realized, oh, this is like an exit ramp off this crazy, violent freeway. Okay, we like it. And literally overnight, the LA Times had a op-ed piece that said, Homeboy belongs to the city, not to Father Greg. So it was really a moment of ownership, but it was a tipping point that happened instantaneously. And I think I would say that we've sort of been carried on the shoulders of the city since then. You know, we were able to purchase the land and build this headquarters in Chinatown where we currently exist.
Which is fantastic. And you're doing some additional building.
We're hoping for housing and such.
And how does that get funded?
Well, we have, you know, it's actually we're frustrated because the city, we don't want money from them. That makes it all the more ridiculous. We're shovel ready. We have the money. We've been trying to do this for 8 years. In fact, donors are going, hey, I thought this was going to happen. I go, the city just, it's slow and no. And that's the whole thing rather than fast and yes, which would have, it's too bad. It's really, and it's housing. I mean, and we're not asking them for a penny, you know, but we need permission to do this. And it's just crazy.
But you must have plenty of people advocating that cause.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it's frustrating because people are voted in, then they leave, and then you get new candidates, and all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, you know, maybe we should put this out to bid. I go, oh, they already told us yes. Anyway, it's horrible.
And people can easily contribute to your, just find your website.
Homeboy Industries, yeah.
I just have to ask because it's gnawing at me. So this idea of demons and demonizing, how did the demon come about? What does that mean? Is it bad, the opposite of good? Is it hell? What is that?
Yeah, I think in the church needs to take some huge responsibility for backing the wrong horse. Sin and evil and devil and hell. Wrong horse. Because they kind of felt back to the 3rd century even, where they said they could have chosen between indictment and invitation, and they chose indictment, you know, because they thought, well, that's going to get people to put their butts in the pews. Right. And that's to, let's scare the hell out of them. And they went down that path. It was unfortunate because it was original sin. It was, you know, all this stuff that if anybody can show me that that was ever helpful, I'll abandon what I'm saying. But of course it's not helpful. It's never been helpful.
It's what divides us.
Exactly. And it's the root of everything, you know, so even take policing where anything you don't want to have happen, like excessive use of force. Well, you'll ask police officers informally, tell me how do you see your job? And they will say, get the bad guy. And you go, oh no, because there are no bad guys. There are no bad guys. They're wounded people, broken people. Let's heal these people. But there's nobody's bad. And then people will say, oh yeah, well, what about him or her or them? Nope.
That person over there, you can't make any excuses for. They're just bad. As if you have to make excuses.
Yeah. I mean, I had a probation officer say this to me once, and I liked her a lot. She's no longer alive, but she would say, well, don't help that guy because he's pure evil. And I went, whoa, what does that even mean? And then I subsequently have known him very well, and he's a great husband and father and worker. But you go, what was that about? Why would anybody say this about somebody? Traumatized, for sure, and in need of healing and got healing. But what's that mean, pure evil?
And to impress that upon somebody.
Yeah. Well, it was mainly impressed upon me. I don't know if she had ever said it to him, but it was like, it doesn't make any sense. Even if you thought somebody was pure evil, you would know that this was about health and not about his soul.
Just her demeanor around him, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, she had written him off.
So what do you see next happening at Homeboys?
Well, I hope we get approved to build these housing. That's kind of our next thing. But we're trying to imagine this thing called Hope Village, which is a kind of, and actually Frank Gehry, who just died, the architect, he was helping us with us. And we had a lot of people trying to imagine. It wasn't enough for us to shake our fist at, we need alternatives to incarceration. We started to ask ourselves, well, what would you do? What does that look like? And we thought, okay, Hope Village is what we came up with. So especially because we have all this space, land the city does, the county does, between our place and county jail, Men's Central Jail. And they've supposedly decided to tear that down and not to rebuild it. So let's imagine a village. Let's imagine mental health, substance use disorder, arts, education, housing, and as a model of healing rather than punishing. And then if we do it correctly, then the world, the country anyway, will say, oh, okay.
Look at that working.
We could do the LA model,
mm-hmm.
Because that's more therapeutic and healing. And
mm-hmm.
if the largest mental institution on the planet is LA County Jail, well, then maybe we could try this.
And LA's getting a pretty bad rap right now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I need to let you go, but I could sit here and talk with you for another hour. It's like there's no cameras or microphones for me.
Yeah, thanks. A real privilege being with you.
Thank you. I'm going to stop by this afternoon and do a little shopping.
Oh, good. It's a good gifts.
I think
place.
So.
Yeah.
Not to mention the delicious croissants.
That's right.
Thank you. And
sure.
We'll support you however we can. And please go to the website and find out where you can help fund this fabulous organization. And please follow us and share our podcast and pass this episode along to someone who might need it. This is And Now Love. Listen to your dreams. They're going to tell you something. And live from your heart. Thank you.